Can everyone use the website and the content you're creating, or are you excluding up to 27% of your audience? Now, when you focus on creating content that all people can access, regardless of their abilities, you're working to improve your web accessibility. On the flip side, when you don't follow some basic best practices, you're not just excluding potential customers, you're putting your business at legal risk. Just a chilling fact for you, there were thousands of lawsuits filed against website owners in 2023 for web accessibility issues. So how can you improve your web accessibility and ensure your content is user-friendly every single time you post and get that lawsuit concern off your back? The sad reality is that it's actually a pretty simple process to make vast improvements to your web accessibility, and yet it gets neglected far too often. Let's dive into 5 steps you should take when creating your content. Now, number 1, I want you to optimize your images. One of the most common mistakes I see marketing teams make when they update their own website is not optimizing images when they add that new content. Whether you're swapping out team photos, adding new projects, creating new blog posts, I see this get neglected all of the time. Before you upload the next image to your website, I want you to follow this quick process. First thing you're going to do is you're going to use a clear file name. Now, WordPress in particular doesn't allow you to change the names of the images, the file names, after you've uploaded them to your website. You can download a plugin to do this, but without some extra steps, you can't change this file name, right? So before you upload those images, take a few minutes and rename them to something descriptive. Now, if it's a person's headshot, it's really easy to just name the photo sue-brown.jpg, for example. Now, at minimum, you want to use a short description of what's in the image. A common analogy I use, if it's a picture of a red Ford truck, you name the image red-Ford-truck. Just make sure that you are including dashes in between individual words so a screen reader can understand that these are different words. Now, why do we do this? When an individual is using a screen reader to navigate the web, those file names can get read back to them to give them context for that image. So you don't want to get caught with an image _9383.jpg. It tells the user nothing about what's in your content. Now, our second step here is after we've named the image, we want to upload that to our website, and now we're going to use alt tag descriptions. This allows you to provide better, more concise descriptions of the images for those who are using screen readers. So the file name gets rid of no alt tag exists, right? But we want to take a little bit more control over that description through these alt tags. Now, WordPress in particular makes this super easy by giving us a space in the media library when we add an image to write just a really quick description. Now, an alt tag should be a literal description of the image to provide context to users using screen assistive technology. So let's go back to that picture of Sue Brown. Your alt tag can simply be Sue Brown headshot in front of a white wall. That's all you need, right? While you can use some of your SEO keywords in alt tags, this is an old SEO trick. The primary reason for these descriptions is to provide context. So don't get away from that being the purpose. If you use keywords, it needs to match the context of the actual image. Now, if you've never written an alt description before, Ahrefs has a handy alt text AI tool that can give you some good ideas to start with. You just upload your image and it shows you a very quick example of what you could write that alt text as. Now, why do we do this? When someone is using a screen reader, they can't see your images. So instead, these alt descriptions get read to provide context for your user. Again, those file names are read as backups when those alt tags aren't there, so it's good to provide both just in case something goes wrong with your website. Now, our last rule here, and do I break this rule on my own website? Yes, but we want to avoid putting text inside of an image. And here's what I really mean. Don't upload pictures that have vital text. What I see often is people they want it to look a certain way, so they put the text in Canva, they style it how they want it to look, and then they download that as an image, and they think that somehow that's okay. Listen, text within an image can't be read by screen readers because that isn't text. That is just an image that you've uploaded to your website. This also means, by the way, that Google can't read it either. So that headline graphic that you decided to create in Canva has zero benefit for your SEO. Zero, right? So if you do upload an image that also happens to have some text, I do this sometimes with screenshots and things to demonstrate a point, you'll want to include a very clear alt description of what's in the image. Now, how do we make infographics accessible? You may be wondering. Well, any large infographic you use should have a detailed description below the graphic with important information like statistics, findings, etc. Now, why do we do this? You want the text on your website to be legible to everyone. The text is what demonstrates that you know what you're doing, that you can help your target audience with their problem, and that you have the services they need. When you bury it in an image, you're preventing a good portion of the audience from understanding how you help, including Google, need I remind you. Now, our next tip, after we've optimized our images, we need to make our content understandable. Now, this is coming from an English major who loves to write and being creative, but all too often when we're creating content, not everyone can understand it or connect with it. If you want your copy to be legible and readable by everyone, including those with dyslexia, for instance, you need to make it easy to skim and understand. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to use our headlines correctly. Let me demonstrate what that means. Okay, so headlines in your website and blog articles, for instance, can go a long way to improving overall legibility. They act as sort of signal posts that allow your readers to skim a section relevant to them, understand what they're going to get underneath that section, and even orient them on the page. With headings, you should have heading 1, which is your largest heading on the page. This is your most important point on the page. This is what your page is talking about. This is what everybody needs to understand. This is what we do, right? And then as you move down the page, you use a heading 2 to introduce a new section or thought, and heading 3s and up to a heading 6 to break up the content in the same section. Now you can see that I've used headings this way in any of my blogs. So if you head to captcoder.com/blog, you're going to see how I use headings for blog articles. Now, why do we do this? Headings are a great way to get your audience's attention and let them know that they're on the correct website. A heading helps, again, to orient them on the page and let them know what content is important to them. It lets them basically choose your own adventure and skip around to where they need to be. Now, another part of optimizing our content is to write for a lower secondary reading level. Listen, clear and concise communication is key to a great website and selling to your target audience. But for users with dyslexia or other reading difficulties, complex text can be a barrier. If you want to create content that is accessible to everyone, just write for a lower secondary level. This is a pretty common journalistic idea too, so it's not new, but a lot of people forget about this, especially with more technical processes and services. So this means you're stripping out your technical jargon. I know, you're using straightforward language and shorter sentences. Now, some ways you can improve your content, just use more of your customers' lingo. They understand it, they're already using it. This is how you show them that you understand them too. You can also use bulleted content, short sentences, or even bold important passages of the copy so it's easy to skim around to what they need. Now, if you're not sure if what you're writing is within the threshold of the lower secondary level, you can use tools like wordcounter.net or Grammarly to check your content and help you pare it back and pare it down. Now, why do we do this? When you make your content easy to read and understand, you're reaching everyone regardless of their abilities. This inclusive approach fosters a positive user experience for everyone and empowers all of your visitors to engage with the content, prevents you from cutting somebody out that may have otherwise been your dream client. Now, we all want people to dig through our website and find the information they need, so the next step in optimizing our content is to link relevant pieces of that content so they can get around our website. So you just need to include links throughout your website. And no, I'm not talking about your menu. I'm talking about within the actual copy of your website. Okay, so if you have a place in your content that makes sense, you want to include a link to another page on your website. For instance, if I talk about web design, I can make a web design link to my web design page. Which, makes a lot of sense, right? These links allow your audience to navigate easily through your website, but it's especially important that you make sure that the text that is a link, what you actually highlight and make a link, is something relevant to the destination page and needs to match up to the thought of that page, not just, a learn more and link that, because that doesn't tell anybody anything about what they're clicking on. This is incredibly important to those who are using screen readers in particular, but it's just helpful for everyone. So why do we do this? Because these links act as signposts, providing clear and relevant ways to jump to different pages of your website. This allows users with visual impairments or cognitive differences to explore the content at their own pace and find the information they want easily. Our third tip today, our third step, is we want to make sure we're checking color contrasts. Let me explain. Before you create any graphics or make any updates to your website, you need to ensure that everyone can actually read the text you're adding. So when you use a low contrast font color on top of a background color, when it doesn't have a high enough contrast, someone who has low vision or color blindness might not be able to read it at all. Now, we of course want everyone to be able to read our content, right? Now, while you're working on an update and you want to use some new color combos, run your colors through an accessibility tool first, like WebAIM's free contrast checker. Now, when we're using WebAIM's tool, all we have to do is pop in what font color we want to use and the background color that we want to use. Now, if this comes up as a fail, then that tells you that not everyone's going to be able to distinguish that text. So in this case, we probably want to use maybe a lighter color or a darker color font so that it will pass and that everybody will be able to see it. Now, before you ever go into Canva and create a graphic for social media, I want you to check the hex codes of the font color that you're planning to use and the background color you're planning to use to make sure that this is legible. Now, why do we do this? Color blindness can make colors that are too close together literally blend. Remember those visual puzzles we did as a kid, the ones where you could only see it if you crossed your eyes, which is not something I can do, by the way, and you were trying to read the text or see the picture within those patterns? Imagine that, but that's your life. Don't do that to people. Make it easy to read your content. Don't make it a puzzle. Now, of course, our next step here with contrast is we want to avoid text on images or background patterns. Designers right now probably aren't going to like me, but another quick way to make your content illegible is to put it on top of a busy picture or some kind of background. You might think that pattern looks great, but it can hurt the eyes and prevent people from being able to read the text on top of it. You might also love that picture. It might be a gorgeous location spot, but the various colors in a picture can make it hard to get a high enough contrast for the text to be legible. You can use outlines on your text, so black outlines on white text is like universally acceptable. Not everybody likes the look though. You could put a plain color box underneath that text or some other design tricks that make this legible. The key here is to avoid it when you can, unless you have somebody who is more of an expert in it, put it together for you. Now, why do we do this? Why do we avoid text on images and patterns? Not only can they introduce a lot of visual variation, making it distinguishable and making it hard to ensure a strong enough contrast between the text and the background, it's not just for those with visual issues. Patterns and pictures can be overwhelming for individuals with cognitive disabilities too, and can prevent them from reading the text altogether. Now, our next step when we're creating content is we're going to optimize audio and video content. Now, do you have a podcast or do you create YouTube videos for your business? Do you put any of those on your website? You need to include alternative options so anyone can access that content. Captions allow not only those with hearing impairments to be able to access your content, but can help those with cognitive issues process what they're watching. How many of us are watching Netflix with captions on at all times now, right? And also, let's be real, most people are watching videos online without the sound anyway. The first thing you want to do if you're creating any video is you want to create closed captions. These are timed so that when you can upload them to YouTube or other platforms, it shows up as you're talking, right? If you're watching this on YouTube right now, you can get closed captions with it. Any kind of video though with narration, you need to include captions so that everyone can access the information in that video. Now, thankfully, this is becoming easier and easier because platforms have automatic captions already built in. Instagram and TikTok, for instance, give you several options for captioning. YouTube will add captions automatically, just maybe not right when the video is live. And you can use apps like Captions to make more stylized captions and make them part of a visual interest of the video. Now, for longer form videos, I do recommend you use a service like rev.com to create captions that you can upload to YouTube or Vimeo. I create captions out of Premiere when I edit these videos, for instance. This is especially useful when you're creating videos for lead magnets, online courses, or maybe a welcome video for your website. And it allows people to toggle those captions on and off should they need them or want them. Now, why do we do this? Listen, you worked hard on these videos. Believe me, this is not an easy thing to create. So make sure everyone can follow along by using captions. This is so easy now. It's not even an excuse at this point. Offer captioning for any video with narration so you can reach everyone. And if you have audio only on your website, you're going to want to ensure that you have a transcription option available too. So podcasts don't necessarily have captioning in quite the same way that video does, but honestly, some individuals they don't want to listen to your content. They want to be able to read it and get the same information. My blogs are a basic transcription of my podcast episodes. Just for instance, this allows me to reach everyone and they can get value out of my podcast even if they can't or just simply don't want to read it or to listen to it, so they can read it instead. And honestly, vice versa. Now, you can include transcripts as a downloadable text file. Not a PDF. Don't do a PDF, right? Or in an expanding box that they can open too if they want to click on it, and it just knocks the whole transcript down there for them to read. Do I think audio-only Clubhouse died as a social media app because they weren't accessible? Absolutely. Lots of complaints about that, honestly. So why do we do this? Because your audio content is great, but not everybody can listen to it. Help those with hearing and, again, even cognitive disabilities to be able to get the value out of your content with a transcript. They can either read along with the transcript or just read the transcript by itself. And our last tip, web accessibility public enemy number one, at least in my opinion, ensure your PDFs are accessible too. So many businesses use a simple PDF as a lead magnet, not understanding that there are people in their audience who can't read that PDF whatsoever. So they put their email in, they got this fancy thing, and now they can't even use it. That just leaves you with frustrated people who are never going to buy from you. Let's take a few minutes and make your PDF more accessible. Now, you can use an auto tool like Pave, but that's not going to be perfect because it's just throwing it through a thing. I recommend, if you're doing a lot of PDFs, that you splurge for Adobe Acrobat and take a few minutes to use its built-in accessibility tools. Now, our first step here is when you're creating that PDF, you're going to check the color contrasts again, right? I want you to ensure that you're keeping an eye on colors and making sure that you're not blending things together that people can still read it. Often when we want these PDF downloads to be well designed, and just to be frank, print allows designers to get a bit more creative. That doesn't mean we ignore color contrast. Make sure that you're using the right color combinations as you identified before, and everything is still legible. Now, we do this because our audience downloading that PDF still needs to be able to read it. I know, crazy idea. Following color contrast best practices means that your content is accessible to everyone, no matter how you serve it, but especially with PDFs. Now, our next step is we want to make sure that the text is searchable, that it's coming out as text. When you create your PDF in Canva, because I see a lot of people do this, or somewhere else, they give you an option to flatten the PDF. Don't do that. Don't do that. This turns your PDF into one big image, and that, my friend, can't be accessed by any sort of assistive technology, so you just cut out a whole bunch of people from your content. If you're creating in Canva, download the full PDF and check that you can copy and paste directly out of the PDF. With the Pro Tools, you can now prepare for accessibility, and it will help you set reading order, set options for specifically for screen readers, for screen magnifiers, and so much more. Now, why do we do this? Why do we make sure that people can access text in our PDF? A PDF can look like a little bit like an ebook, but not a lot of without the proper tags and the work. It's not built in yet, right? Ebooks are actually designed to be incredibly flexible. PDFs, we just haven't gotten there. Especially when you're using design tools to create this content, it can be not so great. Make sure that everyone can read your PDF by spending a few minutes running through a very simple process. Now, you also want to make sure that you're using alt descriptions in your PDF. So, do you remember how we created alt descriptions for images on our websites? We can do that with PDFs too. Crazy concept, I know. Using Adobe's accessibility tools, you can go through and add descriptions to every single image in your PDF, or you can mark it as like decorative, it's just like dots or something like that. Follow the same best practices that you do when you create alt tags for your website images, and you're going to give everyone the ability to understand your entire PDF. Now, PDFs can be read. We do this because PDFs can be read by a screen reader to users too. So you want to help them understand the context of your images with alt text here as well. Now, creating accessible content doesn't just start and stop with when your website is built. Every single update you make to that website needs to follow a process to ensure that every piece of content you're adding to your website continues to be accessible. I can build an accessible website for a client that can become inaccessible because they don't follow the processes when they're updating content themselves. Make this part of your content process every single time. And I want to set you up for success, so I have a freebie just for you. You can grab my Creating Accessible Content Guide in today's show notes, and you'll get a full checklist and links to resources to help you keep your content accessible every time you post something new. Download it now in the notes below. Thank you all for tuning in. Can't wait to talk to you again next week.